There are almost 30,000 pattern pages for the Ranunculus on Ravelry, but does it live up to the hype? I'm knitting it so we can find out together. Hi, I'm Nat and welcome to Tink and Frog Knits. Today I will be casting on my first Ranunculus. I'm going to be discussing what I think of the pattern writing, the finished garment, and why this pattern is just so popular. Why has it taken the knitting world by storm, and is it even worth knitting? It's a very grey afternoon in Yorkshire. I won't apologise for the weather and the grey lighting on my video because I don't control the weather. Plus, I'm going to bring some sunshine to your day with this yarn. This is the colour I'm knitting my Ranunculus. I wouldn't say yellow is my colour. I kind of suit like mustardy colours, but this is golden. This is yellow. This is the West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite 4-ply in the colour Tuscany. I believe it has been discontinued. I was going to knit a camisole number 9 with this, but I wasn't quite sure if 2 skeins was enough to make it the length I wanted. And when my original yarn was a bit of a debacle, see my podcast episode 1 if you want to learn more about that, I asked my daughter, what colour should I knit this t-shirt? And she said, yellow like the sun, mummy. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to use that yellow yarn that I've got to make a sunshine Ranunculus. I have my pattern printed because I'm an analog person. I've wound up some of my yarn. I only did half a skein for now because I don't have a Swift and it is effort, but it wound up, which is already better than the silk packer that I tried to use for this project. And we are going to cast on. I will be casting on the smaller neckline option. So this pattern has 2 options for the neckline. There's a wider neckline and a smaller neckline. Each one has its own cast on method, and both of those methods are new to me. So we're going to be learning something today. I'm going to be using a tubular cast on, and we're going to be using a crochet hook to do a provisional cast on as well. Whatever that means, we'll work it out together. And this already brings me on to reason number 1 why I think this pattern is just so popular. And that is because it is so versatile. There are 2 neckline options. You can have a tighter one, you can have a wider one. You can use fingering weight yarn like I am. You can use worsted weight yarn. You can use wool like I am. You can use cotton. You can make long sleeve jumper. You can make a short sleeve t-shirt. This pattern is just really versatile, and it kind of reminds me of the Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, which came out when I was maybe 12. And it's this film where 4 friends find this pair of jeans that just looks great on all 4 of them. They have different body types, different heights, different sizes, but it still looks amazing on all of them. And that's kind of how this pattern feels. You look through the project gallery on Ravelry and everyone just looks incredible in it, and everyone makes it their own, and everyone makes it how they want, and it's really versatile, and the pattern lets you do that. So I think part of the reason why people find this so appealing is because you can make a Ranunculus that suits your style and your wardrobe. If you see this pattern in the wild on a person, you know that they've knitted that and that they are a knitter. It's like their business card. And that's kind of the reason why I wanted to knit it, to be honest, because I'm not in love with the look of the pattern photos. They're very grey. They're very, very, very oversized. I don't think they're particularly a good fit or for the project photos, but I want one, so I'm making one. So looking at the pattern, there are links to videos. So I've pulled up the video for the cast on my laptop, and I've just started it, and it looks like they're using a medium-ish crochet hook. So I'm going to use my favourite 4mm hook, does everything, and I've got scrap yarn too. Oh my god, there's so many dog hairs. Horrendous, but that's just life when you've got a Labrador. Can't find the end. There we go, right. So they've started with a slip knot on the crochet hook. Okay, so what we're doing is kind of reminds me a bit of Judy's Magic Cast On, but instead of doing a second needle, we're using a crochet hook, and instead of collecting the stitches on the needle or the hook, you're pulling them through to make a chain. I'm sure I look very, very uncoordinated, but look at that, we are learning something new. I'm doing a provisional cast on with a crochet hook and scrap yarn. What fun! This is very much a trust the process kind of knit. I think this looks about the right size. Sorry about Peppa Pig in the background, but I need to remove this crochet chain. And it says there should be no live stitches left, so that's scary. Done my German short rows, and that brings me on to reason number 2 why I think people love this pattern, and that is actually because the pattern is written in a very approachable way. There's lots of schematics, there's lots of videos, and it almost knits itself. It's very split up into sections, and it's just very clear, and I think that it makes this pattern achievable even for beginners. So you may look at this pattern and see this beautiful yoke and think, oh, there's no way I can do that. But actually the way it's broken down is actually really helpful. So there's a diagram on how the German short rows work. So if you haven't done that, you can understand what you're meant to be doing a bit easier, and it makes it just that little bit more approachable. And then number 3 comes on to the fact that I am omitting the German short rows on the front of the collar. It feels very unnatural to me to be knitting short rows on the back and the front, because I don't want my collar to be cutting me up in the throat. I want it to sit lower, especially because I'm doing the smaller neckline. Sorry, my dog's just being skittish. You right, soul boy? God forbid he can't get next to my feet. Reason number 3 why I think people love this pattern is because there are almost 30,000 projects on Ravelry. So if you're thinking of omitting something or adding something or modifying something, you can go on Ravelry and you can almost guarantee that you can find a project that's done what you want to do. So I was like, I don't think I want to do those German short rows. Quick type into Ravelry and there's lists of projects and projects and projects that have omitted the German short rows on the front, and it'll be the same for sleeves up to here, blue, extra lace around the hem. You can have a look at all those things and see people that have done it, see people that have used the yarn you want, used the colour you want, done the mod you want. And I think having that representation makes it a lot easier for you to commit to doing a pattern, because sometimes it is hard to visualize, you know, like what on earth is this going to look like in this bright yellow color? I don't know. So it's quite difficult to sometimes see that in your head, and I think having that many projects to reference is incredibly helpful and part of why people commit to this pattern. So instead of doing the German short rows on the front, I'm just going to knit all the way around now to make sure I've resolved my double stitches, and then I'll be moving on to the yoke, which is all the texture and the fun stuff. So very exciting.
Good morning. I have a horrible sore throat and cold, so probably won't be chatting too much today. But I just wanted to show you what I did last night. It's pretty tricky to see because I like using tiny cables, so my stitches are bunched up and it's quicker to knit. But I did this much of the yoke, which I think was 28 rows out of 34, so pretty good going. And that brings me on to reason 3. That brings me on to reason 4 why people love this pattern. And doing this yoke is so fun and so engaging. You're doing different things on practically every row. I've learned lots of new techniques like this pattern here, this slippy pattern here, and every row I just want to keep going and see what the next part of the pattern is going to be, because to be honest, as many Ranunculus that I've looked at Ravelry. I don't think I've ever actually taken in what the pattern actually is. I think I've just looked at it and been like, oh, pretty yoke. So yeah, it's been really fun to do this. So it's been going really quick just because I'm having a good time and I'm enjoying doing all these different techniques and all the different rows. So that's reason number 4, is just, it's a nice knit. It's enjoyable. It's not samey. It's exciting. And that's it from me for now because I'm sick. It's been almost a month since I was ill in that video. I have finished my ranunculus though. I've cut off 2/3 of my hair and I'm ready to finish my video. I'm not going to show the finished garment yet. If you've not seen my second episode of my knitting podcast, then maybe you've not seen any spoilers yet. And I'm going to go straight on to point 5, why I think this is such a well-loved and well-knitted pattern. When you are constructing this garment, you start with the collar and you do the circular yoke, and you'll notice in the pattern that there's not actually any differences in that yoke across all of the sizes. You don't choose what size you want to knit until you get to the point where you add some raglan increases underneath the textured yoke part. I didn't realise this when I knit it. I hadn't read ahead because it was very textured and a bit different for me. I didn't want to overwhelm myself getting too far ahead in a pattern. That's just the way I am. I kind of just go with the flow. So when I got to the raglan increases, I was like, oh, this is quite a clever way to do it, because now I can, check my tension. I can check that it's going to fit. I can make adjustments to the size I was choosing if necessary, which is often a lot more difficult if you're going in with a specific size straight from the start, because it is difficult when you're knitting with different yarn thicknesses, different fibres. The same needles aren't going to come out with the same tension with all those different yarns and those different knitters. My ranunculus is a lot tighter in tension than the pattern tension. So at this point in the pattern, I could have gone, oh, this is actually quite tight, though admittedly it's quite difficult to measure in the textured yoke. I could have gone, this is quite tight, I'm going to knit size 5 so I can still have the oversized look I was going for. Which isn't what I did, but the option was there and it was a thing that I considered, and it does make the pattern quite flexible and also one of those things that you can just cast on. You don't have to gauge swatch, just cast it on, get going, have fun and just work it out later. So because my gauge was quite tight, I was quite concerned about the sleeves being too tight, the sleeve armhole. So when I was doing my yoke, I did knit a few extra rows. I didn't necessarily increase much more because I wasn't entirely sure how the yarn would block out, and I was happy that it would fit even if it was a tighter fit. But I did add a couple of extra rows just to add that little bit more depth, which I think was a good idea. I've checked on Ravelry and it does seem to be quite a common issue that people have sleeve holes, armholes that are too small. So to note, if you're knitting this pattern, that might be maybe one of the only flaws with the pattern. If you want to do short sleeves in the pattern, the recommendation is essentially just binding off the sleeves whilst you're splitting for sleeves and the body, so you don't knit any extra length. On mine, I did do some extra length. I did some stockinette and some twisted rib just to make the sleeve a little bit longer as opposed to just the sleeve cap, but that was just a completely personal preference thing for me. I cast this project on the 30th of July and I cast it off on the 2nd of August. Yeah, it's that quick. And that included a mid-project block to address the sleeve concerns that I was talking about before and check that it was okay before I finished the piece and realised it wouldn't fit. So it is so fast. And that brings me on to reason number 6 why people love knitting this pattern. It's so fast. It's so fast. It's 6mm needles and it flies off the needles. I did it in 4 days. It was more like 3 if you take into account blocking and the fact that I started in the evening and ended in the morning. It's so fast. It's just so fast. It just makes it a really good, satisfying knit. It makes it great for a gift knit if you want to knit something for someone, and it's just so satisfying watching how quick it goes. It's fast. It's just so fast. It's so fast. So yeah, reason number 6. Knits up so fast. I mean, they did have the flu. You saw the previous clip. I was not particularly well, so I was kind of moping on the sofa quite a lot in that period of time, but you've seen how much I'd done when I was healthy before I even got to the rest, so fast. I think when you're searching for a pattern on Ravelry, seeing that it's a 14 stitch gauge is also quite appealing for people because they know it will be quick. When you see a fingering weight garment that's got 29 stitches and 10 centimeters, it's easy to be like,
such a slog. So I think people are a bit more willing to commit to this project because seeing 14 stitches in 10 centimeters makes you think, yeah, that'll be quite quick. Actually, I'll do that. I used 440 meters of yarn for mine, and that was with adding an extra 7 or 8 centimeters to the body. I was going to lengthen it a little bit more, but I kind of finished the skein there and thought that'll do. So that's fine. That brings me on to reason number 7, why people love knitting this pattern, and that is because it uses so little yarn. 440 meters for a garment is nothing. I just knit a t-shirt and I used almost 900 meters. When I do sweaters, I tend to use 1,200-ish. So the fact that this uses so little yarn, or comparatively so little yarn, means that you can kind of splurge a little bit. If you're doing the smaller sizes, you can use a single hank of fingering weight yarn to get a whole t-shirt out of it. Like, you can get that special yarn and use the special yarn that maybe you couldn't justify paying for a full sweater or long sleeved project. For me, I used a yarn that was £10 a skein, which is way out of my price range usually. So it was really nice to be able to just have that like luxury yarn, more luxurious feel. It feels really lovely when I wear it because I didn't need much yarn for this project, and I think that's the thing that appeals to other people as well. So let's go for the reveal. This is my Ranunculus, though I do have a little disclaimer that I've still not blocked the sleeves. I blocked the body because I wanted to check that my armholes were going to be big enough, but I haven't blocked the sleeves yet. It's just on my to-do list of things to do that I've not done, but will do soon. And then I'll get some like videos of me actually wearing it. But isn't it beautiful? This obviously is not a sweater version that I was planning on having. It's a lot more fitted. I have about maybe just under 10 centimeters positive ease, but the pattern size I was going to knit was going to be about 25-30, so it did come out a lot smaller than I thought. But when I tried it on after blocking the body, I was like, oh, I actually really like this. I'm going to make a t-shirt. Did I enjoy knitting this pattern? Do I like the finished garment, and did it live up to the hype? Yes to all 3. The pattern's really well written. It almost feels like it's knitting itself. Like, it's kind of ridiculous almost how straightforward and easy it is for you to just get to grips with it and do it and fly through it. There's tutorials and videos, so I learned loads of different techniques from this whilst also enjoying myself and not feeling like I was like, I don't know, stressing about learning new things. There's so many helpful notes on Ravelry. There's loads of support out there. There's loads of people who've done videos on YouTube if you need any additional support to help you do it. I love the yarn that I chose. This is discontinued, unfortunately, which I'm kind of gutted about because it just feels really gorgeous wearing it. It's kind of a tricky yarn for a t-shirt because it is wool, even though it's fingering weight and quite a loose gauge. It's still wool, so I'm not sure how versatile this garment will be in the British weather. But then, I don't know, it's probably quite good for spring and autumn, maybe just not summer, which is obviously where we're at now. It's August. I do think I might have to try and pick up some of this yarn before they sell out though. I really like the colour that I chose. I was a bit unsure for a while, but it's just, backwards. It's just so bright and colourful and beautiful, and I'm really glad that I did such a bold first Ranunculus. And isn't this such a stark contrast to the really oversized grey pattern photos that you see? That's just another way to highlight just how versatile and different this pattern can be for different people. I think it is pretty clear why this is always on the hot right now on Ravelry. I think it's pretty clear why 30,000 people have knitted it. I'm really glad that I knit the Ranunculus. I definitely want to do a long sleeve version at some point that's actually oversized and knitted to gauge, not a tight t-shirt version. But I really loved knitting it. It flew off my needles. I enjoyed myself. I love the finished garment. And I recommend that if you haven't already knitted one, knit a Ranunculus. You won't regret it.